Well, remember I told you that I always look forward to find the new phrase or word or subject that's going to be the thing that inspires me to have another conversation about it because I believe it's important and it's relevant. And the heading of this conversation is, uh, yo, I think I'm not even going to give it a heading. I'm not going to give it a heading. I'm just going to start talking about it. We live in a time where, since COVID, this is very important. It's not as if these things weren't there and present before COVID. It was there. But it's as if after COVID, after people received these injections, that a large group of people suddenly, it's as if their conscience suddenly didn't work properly anymore. It's weird. And that a lot of things that used to be absolutely taboo for very good reasons, okay, just gradually and shockingly, expandingly so, just became not only more acceptable but popular. And now, as you've seen last year in the USA, when everything started being exposed with the massive fires in California, and Diddy and all his parties and despicable things that he engaged in, and caused people to engage in, manipulate people to engage in, started off a purification snowball in the USA, making people in the world more aware of the shocking large group of people, not just in the USA but in the world, that allowed themselves to become okay with it, that it's normal, to accept it as a normal phenomena in society, that to have the need, first of all the need, or develop the need, or acknowledging the need, and then the desire to engage in what they call either rough or violent sex. Not just with the opposite sex, but also with not just the same sex, but children and then sometimes animals. Now, if you are a person that grew up in a Christian community where morality and good values have always been extremely important, and if you were brought up that the very purpose of sex is for one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to communicate love and your deepest feelings of affection to the opposite sex. And you grow older and you come in contact with the harsh reality of the existence, and not just the existence of this, but the large group of people that desire to engage in this, and as I said, have the need to such an extent that this is why places like Adult World could become very successful as a business before the internet became so popular, providing what I call props to help people live out their fantasies for aggressive or then rough or violent sex. Now, if you have a history behind you of many relationships with men like me, where you are your only experience and need and desire for expressing love and affection through sexual interaction with the partner of your choice, it's very, very difficult to relate to a people out there that have become accustomed, they've allowed themselves to become accustomed to believe that it's okay to operate in such a way. Now, the only place where I can relate to these feelings, let's call it feelings, desires, needs, to allow yourself to express yourself sexually in an aggressive and violent way, is when I was a child. And as I said to you, this is not something that I really ever wanted to talk about, because it's extremely shameful. But as a small primary school child, I found inside me, in my mind, these images that I don't know where it came from, and it caused me a lot of unhappiness, especially as I become older and understood that God is a God of love, and that He wants His children to operate within His love and within His protection, and therefore give love and protection to other people. And if you look at the nature of Yeshua, and you look of the way he communicated with even the woman at the well, who he was not supposed to communicate with, it is very difficult to imagine that the Godhead Himself, or Yeshua Himself, would confuse as an expression of love with violence and aggression. So I knew as a child already that these images and these desires and feelings that were in me was not good, and that the energy that was around me, if I would give in to these kind of desires of sadism, it's what it is, to sadism, to enjoy hurting other people, not necessarily sexually, but enjoy hurting other people, that it's wrong, and that I have to question, where does this come from? Why do I have this? How did this become a part of me? Because nobody taught me to do this. No adult taught me to do these things that I can recall. So where does it come from? Now I also need to tell you, it's not something that I want to talk about to give anybody leverage. But I think at this point in my life, I am fully aware of the absolute divine protection of God over my life, and the large spirit team that I have in the visible and invisible world to protect me, and that has been protecting me my entire life. So only much later in my life, when I was much older, did my father himself, this is how I know it for a fact, my father called me because he was at home, and him and I spent a lot of time at home as I was older. And he would call me and he said that I need to come and sit down because he needs to talk to me. And he shared with me something very shocking, which at that point didn't shock me, because God already revealed to me that my father did something to me when I was a baby that was very bad. And that it's part of why God allowed him to fall into such a deep, deep state of depression. Because for a man or a woman, a parent, to do that to a child, they need to understand that the karmic debt that they are going to pay in their life for doing that is going to be severe. So I don't need to go into the details of the kind of thoughts that were in my mind as a child. The only thing that you need to know is that it was very disturbing for me as a child. Why I had the desire to bring harm to especially other children. Why did I have such a desire? And remember, I'm talking about pre-primary school, primary school. This is the ages of 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, around and about there. And even at such a young age, it bothered me so much. And the more I spent time at church and in children's church, because remember, in our community that we grew up, we had church service. Then after church is the children's church service. Okay, that we called. It's in small groups. It's not in a big group. And then on Tuesdays we had again little groups in the community where the children got together, where we had like a Bible study. So we were very, very much exposed to the Word of God. Exposed to adult people praying for us, being an example to us of morality and the importance of it, providing security in a community and for yourself and in the family. And this is why these things are important for God. So, of course, through these beautiful adults that were there as an incredible security structure for us as children, I become severely convicted within myself that these thoughts and these feelings cannot be from God, and they make me unhappy, and I don't want to have them, because when I give into these lustful desires, it doesn't make me feel good. It brings a sadness to my soul, and there's this huge inner conflict between these desires and feelings that I don't even know what is the origin. So it was also more or less around a time, I can't remember if it was, this is now the conversation between me and my father. I can't remember if it was before it or after it. But I know that at some point he sent me to go and fetch something in his cupboard. He was in the sitting room. And as I retrieved this item from his cupboard that he needed, I saw behind everything this big stack of magazines, and I picked one up and have a look at it, and I saw that it was pornography. Now please understand that we as children in my time weren't exposed like today's children to pornography. Okay, we grew up extremely protected and extremely innocent. And when I brought the item to my father, I was obviously upset, and I said to him, "Why are these magazines in your cupboard?" I confronted him directly. I don't pussyfoot about stuff, eh? This is part of who and what I am. And my father said, "Oh yeah, he's made a decision about it, and that he no longer wants it. So I am very welcome to go and take it and do him a favor and throw it away." Now I was too young at that point in time, not yet learning how to maintain personal boundaries and respect other people's boundaries. That was not yet part of my understanding as a very important thing to learn. So I went to take the magazines out of his cupboard, very happy that I'm allowed to do this. Whereas the truth is, I should have told him, "Listen, don't now make your responsibility my responsibility. You need to go and deal with it yourself." That's what I should have said to him, but I didn't. I went to take these magazines, and before I chucked them in the dustbin, which they should have been burned, they should not have been chucked away so that they can pollute somebody else's mind on the dump heap. So of course I'm inquisitive, because I've never seen magazines like this, and as I paged through these things, and I saw these horrific photographs of men in very sadistic ways and clothing, with chains and dog collars, with women treated like dogs. it was such a shock to my system that I just started crying. I was 16 years old. I just started crying because I thought to myself, these girls, look how young they are. They're about my age, and it looks as if some of them are even younger than me. How can a man who has a daughter or daughters, who loves their own daughters and want to protect their own daughters, how is it possible that there can be men out there that desire to treat women like this? It wasn't part of my of my point of reference, my frame of mind, that it's possible for people, my species, Homo sapien, to want to be like this. That there's people that perceive this as normal and that this can be legal. It was a huge shock to my system. It was nauseating to me. I was extremely upset, extremely upset. And I threw the stuff away. But it had a heavy impact on my conscience that I can tell you now. It was so vulgar and disgusting to me. So when my father called me and he had a conversation with me, what he said to me wasn't a shock. It was just a confirmation, but it was worse than I expected. Far worse than I expected. And he confessed to me that at the age of 2 years old, which was the time that my sister was born, she's only 2 years younger than me, he was angry for not having enough money. And I don't know why he needed more money or who placed the pressure on him for more money, but we were living in Natal at that point in my life. And he confessed to me that he sacrificed me to Satan for the sake of money, to have more money. And that he wants to say to me that he doesn't have words to explain to me how extremely sorry he is for what he's done. And how he understands that a lot of the suffering that he had to go through in his life is because of what he's done. And that he has plenty times in his life asked God to please forgive him. And he doesn't know how to fix the extreme harm that he's done to me in my life. And it is amazing how God prepares you for something ahead of time. And you must understand that I was only about 12 years old, between 12 years old and 16 years old, when I really became reborn and started walking a specific close path and in relationship to God. And had wonderful counselors in my life who I could go to help me to start forgiving my father, whom I absolutely, passionately hated. You've got no idea how I absolutely hated that man as a child. All I wanted to do was to find a way to kill him. And because I'm very practical in my thinking, even since my childhood, this is why I had woodwork as a subject since the age of 12 years old to 18, and I'm an artist. I could never figure out a way that's practical enough without being caught. And of course, I know that the Holy Spirit protected me from ever trying to engage in physically doing it. But the miracle is, for me, this is why I'm sharing this now. The miracle is that when I became reborn at the age of 12 to 16 years old, I knew that if God is the God of forgiveness through the acts of Jesus Christ, Yeshua, then I have to learn how to forgive what was done to me. And some things to me is just so difficult because my father caused me tremendous amounts of emotional pain. He also completely rejected me at the age of 3 years old after I've been his everything. I was his favorite. He always carried me on his neck everywhere. I was his darling girl. And to go through that, again, at the age of 3 years old, it was just, and of course his drinking and all the humiliation and all the conflict. There was massive conflict between me and him because I would never shut my mouth for him. And he often said to me, "You're like a bloody rubber ball. The harder I throw you down on the ground, the higher you jump up into the air." And I thought that was funny. But the good thing for me is that I learned to forgive my father thanks to the beautiful counselors in my life that I could go to and say, "Please pray for me, please help me, because I really battle with this and I know I have to start forgiving my father." So it was a long path of healing and developing the ability to choose. Despite his drinking and rudeness and humiliation that continued, to be able to keep forgiving him. It wasn't easy. It was really, really tough. But I managed. So you have to understand that when he called me to communicate this information to me, I don't remember how old I was when he shared this information with me. I could have been in my early 20s. It's possible. It for me was quite miraculous that when he shared this information with me, that must have taken a hell of a lot of guts. Seriously, people, you have to admit that for a father who doesn't have to admit to me what he did, because I was only 2 years old and I couldn't remember because he didn't share that detail. But I know that I was drugged. I know that for a fact. There are things that the Holy Spirit revealed to you in your life that other people think would be impossible, because He knows and He remembers everything. So I had great respect for my father to have the guts to take the huge risk of sharing that information with me. Now, this is vitally important, and this is why I right now choose to share this information, because these awful thoughts that were in my mind and desires, I for the first time in my life truly understood where it originated, where it came from, and how it happened that the enemy got entry to my mind to have these kind of desires and feelings. But thank God for my grandmothers that were always praying for me, for my mother, for all these beautiful people in my community, and the counselors that I went to in my life that all prayed for me, and I would ask them what they need to pray for me for. And God honors prayers, and I have great respect for prayer because it's powerful, especially when it comes from an upright heart. So God answered my prayers, because when I reached puberty, even before I reached puberty, I was sometimes so consumed with lust that it felt to me that it was driving me nuts. And I often cried before God and said, "Please, Lord, I beg you, release me from this consuming, lustful desire." And you feel so ashamed because nobody dares know what's going on in your mind, and you're only a child. You're not even a teenager yet. And you know what? God really, really answered my prayers, and He completely released me from those thoughts, those feelings, those desires. And He gave me a wonderful boyfriend at the age of 14 years old, a really, really honorable and good guy who was a wonderful man to have a first serious relationship with in high school. And I have to say, God was very good to me. Most of the guys that God allowed to enter my life were beautiful, beautiful souls that were extremely loving, extremely compassionate, extremely kind. And that is why, after a lifetime of 55 years old and being very privileged to have been in the company of men that I considered very kind and honest lovers, I feel blessed to look back at that and to know that God has been good to me. And He has only shown mostly a lot of love that made me feel safe and made me feel protected. I'm not trying to say that these guys were perfect. I'm not trying to say that they, never did anything wrong or did anything wrong behind my back. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that I never had to be exposed to men that treated me disrespectfully in a sexual way. And I'm really grateful to God for protecting me. He used these guys in my life to protect me. So now, the reason why I first choose to share my personal testimony and life experience regarding this is the foundation before I want to say what I want to say about the very big difference between passionate sexual expression as a form of expressing your love and desire and passion for your partner. There's a very big difference between that or the intention that's driving your actions, because the intention is love. You find this person so attractive, you desire to be with this person so badly that your sexual drive and becomes an absolute passionate expression. And that I understand and that I can accept. And I also can tell you that is why Frenchmen in general are very, very good lovers, because they are very expressive. They're not afraid to show you how they feel. Where when it comes to South African men, they are not, okay, I'm generalizing now, okay? This new generation is a very different generation. Very different from the way I grew up in. But a lot of them are not what I would explain very passionate. They're very reserved. Because this is the sad thing about a Christian or very religious community, is that the possible negative thing that goes with the way they are being brought up to be very conservative, is that unfortunately this is a bad thing in the religious practices, that they have a tendency to make people feel guilty about their genitals and feel ashamed of their genitals. And because of that, it definitely subconsciously influences how people express themselves sexually when they are engaging. So this I can understand. These things I can accept as a reality. I can also understand that if you were brought up feeling guilty about your sexuality, and ashamed of your genitals, and you reach a place in your adulthood where you are going through a growing phase of exploring, needing to get rid of this wrong guilt and shame that you're feeling sexually. It is possible to go through a phase of imbalance where you might topple over completely to the wrong side and allow yourself to engage in, let's call it, aggressive sex or rough sex. Now, for me, this is what I want to say. Some people might consider passionate sex as potentially rough, And when you watch it, if you would watch it, it might appear rough, okay? But it's not necessarily violent, because this is for me very important to have a conversation about this and differentiate. Because you see, this is typical of the enemy. He always gets a foot in the door there where two boundaries come so close together that they have the possibility to overlap. Now, this word overlap, it's very interesting, because yesterday when this word surfaced, termed rough sex, I asked Google, what is considered rough sex? And as they now explained and talked about it, they go into using this specific sentence, which I found very interesting, that some people reach a place where the level of excitement that they need is of such intensity that they want the feelings of pleasure and the feelings of pain to overlap to create a higher form of stimulation. Now you see, that's exactly there where the red lights go on for me. Because for me, one of my greatest life lessons is about discernment. Because inside of me there is a judge. I'm extremely interested in righteous thinking. I am very much connected to the righteous mindset of God, because I've come to understand that that is the other side of the coin of God's divine love. And any father who had a child, or anybody who had a pet that they dearly love and absolutely adore, know that if they do not apply discipline, there's going to be a problem, hey? There's going to be a problem, because now, if you do not discipline your child, you are depriving him from a very important skill that he needs to learn, and that is to be able to discern and learn through experience that certain choices have certain consequences. Now, this is what it's about for me. Where the danger, the zone comes in from allowing yourself to confuse expressing your passion that comes from a foundation and intention of love, overwhelming love and desire to be one with the other person, okay? And becoming very, very selfish. Now, this is the next thing that was said, which was for me the actual answer that I was looking for. This is what I asked. Why do people have the need for violent sex, aggressive sex? Why do people have a desire for it? And then they gave a very interesting answer, and they said that with people that have an extremely busy mind, that works very hard during the day and over a long period of time have developed an extremely active mind, and with that goes a lot of stress in the body. They have discovered that when they engage in aggressive sex, where the pain and the pleasure overlaps, that kind of orgasms has, and also the activity itself, helps the brain to for a moment become quiet and to release that stress that's inside of the mind and in the body. So I thought, okay, thank you, bingo. That answers my question exactly. This is so, because I always thought to myself, is this always only demonic? Because when you grew up like I did, you have to understand that the mere notion that somebody desires to hurt somebody while having sex and thinking that that's okay is to me so evil, so unacceptable, that there can only be one explanation, and it's demonic. That you must have opened yourself at some point in your life to invite demons into your body through some form of ritual or participating, having meals or drinks with people that do these kind of things and put stuff in your food and drink, to be able to put those desires in you, or do rituals with you, perhaps while you were in hospital, perhaps, you were engaged with a partner that was involved in witchcraft or, you know, satanic practices. But you must have done something to open that door into your life to have these kind of desires. But now, and to a certain extent, there's much truth in that, that cannot be discarded. And of course, one thing that you must not for 1 second ignore is the extreme danger of pornography. Because men are way more visually inclined than what women are. This is why you will see it is very easy for a woman to be in a relationship with a man that's not really physically very attractive. He doesn't take care of his body. It's not as if he has strong muscular arms or a nice torso or a six-pack or nice strong legs, or a nice tan. A lot of women have men that really don't take care of themselves, A lot of them. And it's much easier for the woman to be able to embrace that man with unconditional love regarding his physical body than what it is for men to embrace a woman who has an imperfect body and doesn't really take care of her body the way she should because he's more visually inclined. And of course, we all know that this is why one of the reasons why pornography is so popular. It's not just about the obvious sexual stimulation that causes orgasm. It has a lot to do with allowing themselves to look at women with perfect bodies that is stimulating to them to look at. But the terrible thing is that the subconscious mind works like a library that stores this imagery. And this is a massive problem, especially if you are in marriage. Because you see, from a spiritual point of view, you need to understand the level of pollution that you are not only bringing inside of your body, into your mind, into your consciousness, but everything has a specific energy frequency. And the energy frequency that goes with pornography is a very dark frequency. It's not something that at all has positive long-term consequences for you or your partner, because the reality is the largest amount of pornography is created by vile people that are, there's a very large possibility that they are engaging in satanic practices, because it's a very low level of integrity, it's a very low level of morality. And to even, let's think practical. What kind of person do you have to be to expect of others to act out sexual acts of aggressive behavior, which is fake? It's not real, it's fake. And then you want to photograph it, in the most explicit ways possible to make money from the exploitation. There's nothing good about it. There's nothing positive about it for me. It's a very, very big difference. A very big difference. And again, this is a sensitive point when you want to go into a debate or a conversation. Well, if you make a movie, where do you draw the line regarding what's acceptable to video footage when people are engaging in a love-making scene, and where is it not? And I don't want to get into that debate. All I want to say is that just to go there is already to put yourself in a challenging position, because for me it's as simple as that. Most people are shy about their nakedness. So this is what you need to ask yourself. This very good saying, for do unto others as you want done unto yourself. If you wouldn't want somebody to make pornographic video of you while you are sexually engaging with somebody else, if you wouldn't want that done to you, why do you want to enjoy it when it's done to other people? Because what level of integrity is inside of your reasoning process now? Why is it suddenly justified just because these people have made themselves available to be actors in a porn movie? You have to understand, and you have to be very honest with yourself. A lot of the people that reach a point in their life where they are willing to become an actor in the beginning of pornography often finds themselves financially in a very, very difficult situation and is desperate for finances. And it's not necessarily something that they really wanted to do, just like with prostitution. That's the oldest, job in the world. There's not a lot of positive feelings involved, When you are in a difficult position where you have a lack of finances, you are most possibly very stressed. Now you meet these shaky people, because they are shaky people that make porn movies. They are shaky people. I met some of them. I was in an interview with somebody who put an ad out. Okay, they put an ad out of all magazines, an Afrikaans agricultural magazine many years ago, that they're looking for girls that can do horse riding, because they want to make a movie. Because I'm from the Western Cape, and in the Western Cape there's quite a lot of people that do movies. So they're constantly looking for extras. And my friend, where I did horse riding, said to me, listen, here's a cool opportunity for you. Because she also had friends that's in the movie industry who provides the horses for the movie industry. And she said, this is a cool opportunity for you. You should phone this number and send in a portfolio. So I sent in the portfolio, and the people called me, and I went in through an interview in the waterfront with this German man. And to make a long story short, I shared this information in the past. I purposefully kept myself very stupid. This guy was a lustful creep. He was really a fucking creepy individual. And I just purposefully played as dumb as the ground, which freaked him out completely, because I absolutely refused to play his game. And he really started becoming rude to me, like saying to me, I can tell you right now, I can absolutely see that you will not be able to play this role, because we need girls that knows how to naturally be sexy and move sexy, and to be aggressive, with the horses. And you will not be able to do that, because you're gonna fake it. We want this to be very real. So I played stupid, eh? And I said, this is now a manipulation trick. He was now hoping that I am now gonna fall for the trap, because he says he's now so frustrated because, all the girls that they are interviewing, none of the girls are interested in wanting to play in this movie and come to be an extra or a character. I said, well, good. That should give you an answer that this movie is not supposed to be made, because you're underestimating the level of intelligence of the girls here in the Western Cape. If he was saying the truth, I don't even know if he was talking the truth. He was such a creepy arsehole. And so I of course used the opportunity at the end to start asking him. I bowled him over with this question, like, you can't believe, eh? I said to him, listen, what do you believe about what happens to you after you die? Then, of course, he said, listen, this is not something I need to discuss with you right now. I said, well, I think this is a very good time for you to start thinking about this, because there is something like karma, And choices have consequences. And it's not going to have very good consequences for you if you're going to continue making this movie, wanting to bring harm to animals, wanting to make sadistic sex movies with horses and dogs. It's disgusting. And he was so pissed off with me. He was so pissed off with me. It was probably one of the worst interviews of his entire life. And I used every second to piss on his battery as much as I possibly could. So I know when I say to you, these people carry severely disturbing, lustful, dark, low vibrational energy, and the way they reason, their reasoning capacity is just up to shit. That's basically what it boils down to. So now, if you're intelligent, that means that you have the ability to take in information and to reason with that information. In other words, to think about the possible outcomes of and consequences of choosing to continue with these thought patterns or engaging in this activity. This is called intelligence. And then making new decisions because you've realized, I don't think it's going to be worth the consequence to continue with this. Or make the choice, listen, I am here to learn the lesson between what is good and what is evil. And God even says to the young people, go out and experience everything and keep what is good and let go of that which is evil, which is not good for you, and learn from it. But know that you will bear the consequences of your choices. Don't think it's as easy as going to play in Satan's a little park of toys, and it's not going to have consequences. It's going to have fucking terrible consequences. Long-term consequences if you keep going back to engage in that kind of stuff. Okay? So this is how I think an intelligent person should reason regarding why he wants to believe it's okay to watch pornography, now that you know what kind of people create pornography and what kind of energy frequency you are exposing yourself to, and the consequences it's going to have for you and the consequences it's going to have for your people that you engage in, especially partners. So now, it was very interesting for me to hear what Google says there is one of the big reasons why a larger group of young upcoming people is being more and more interested in aggressive and violent sex. And of course they have this little ridiculous sentence that goes with it, that it should be a mutual agreement, and it should be safe. Then I think, what a load of cuck. What a load of absolute cuck. Why do you have to have a mutual agreement with a partner that you say you love, you have feelings of love for them, but now you want to listen, my dear, I want to discuss something intimate with you. My love for you is so passionate that I desire to really cause you pain as well, because I think you need to experience what it's like when pain and pleasure overlaps, to have a brand new experience of orgasm and how relaxing it can be to you. Now you see, an intelligent individual that has the Holy Spirit and is completely well equipped with the capacity to discern between the truth behind the intentions, what a whole lot of bullshit it is, will very, very wisely know how to lay their personal boundaries and say, listen, sir, let's be very clear about this. I know my Father. I know His Son Yeshua. I know the Holy Spirit because we've been walking intimately for a very long period of time. I've had something between 12 and 18 relationships. I have to go and make a list, I'm not sure, with men. I didn't have sex with all of them, but they were relationships. And I can tell you one thing now. We could sometimes be very, very passionate in the way we express our feelings and desires for each other, but never, ever, once, not even once, did any of us communicated or had a desire to cause the other partner pain, justifying it that it's going to be so good for you to mentally and physically relax a bit more, to bring a bit of silence to your mind. I would like to see you in conversation with Yeshua while wearing that little wristband that says, "What would Jesus do?" And you think that Jesus wasn't in a love relationship. Well, you're wrong. He was in a love relationship, and he was extremely fond of Mary Magdalene. And you have to understand one thing very clearly. Yeshua came in the human body to experience the fullness of being God inside a human body. He experienced everything a normal male experienced. And if you for 1 second believe that Jesus never had any sexual desire to be with a woman, you are living in fool's paradise. I need to remind you about the scripture that said Jesus had to learn through hardship what obedience means. Obedience to God, obedience to his parents. Now let me tell you now, nobody that is born perfect needs to learn obedience through hardship and suffering. Okay, so this is one of the big lies that the church have made themselves comfortable with to teach humanity, because they don't read all the scriptures properly and purposefully choose to ignore certain scriptures. There's a time and a place for everything. There's a very large part of Jesus Christ's life that's not written in the Bible. It's not in the scriptures. And he left his parents at the age of 12, 13 years old when he went into puberty. And then he started on his travels to India, through Egypt. And he learned a whole lot of stuff in other countries from other nations before he returned to the Hebrews at the age of 30 years old. So please tell me, honestly now, what would Jesus do? If you had to sit down, around a table and have a nice cup of coffee or a nice cool drink or a nice glass of wine with Yeshua, as a male, as a woman who is in a love relationship, who is married, and you need to have a very, very blatant and open conversation, because we're all adults here. We all had a fair amount of life experience with relationships with the opposite sex. What do you think is Jesus going to tell you about your fetish for violent sex? Engaging in practices where you want to overpower your partner and manipulate their mind that it's okay, that they don't have to be afraid for you to hurt them and allow them to hurt you while having sex, and call that safe agreement. A safe and secure agreement between lovers that we are giving each other the green light to harm and hurt each other while having sex as a brand new experience, allowing ourselves for the overlapping of pleasure and pain to have a brand new experience. And you want to call this love. I'm sorry, for me this is deeply confusing. This is like justifying being a parent, that because he loves you, he has the right to hurt him by hitting him or tying him to a bed or to molest him at night, because you as a parent has the right to provide him with the life experience of the euphoric experience where you overlap pain with pleasure, confusing the child about how to discern between what is good and what is wrong, what is love and what is hatred, what is of God and what is of Satan. Does God himself not say in the letters to the Laodicea, I think it's Laodicea, one of the communities, he says, if you were only hot or cold, I could accept that and respect it. He said, but now you've become this lukewarmness, this lukewarm, fake relationship that you want to have with me. You want to have one foot, in Satan's kingdom, and you want one foot in God's kingdom, and God says, sorry, this doesn't work for me. So when you come to me in your state of lukewarmness, I'm going to say to you, sorry, I'm going to spit you out of my mind, because any man or woman who understands the necessity to lay down healthy boundaries because they love themselves enough as the temple of God, that is the indwelling vehicle for the Holy Spirit present within your body. So you want to tell me that the Holy Spirit inside your body is okay with it, that you want to physically bring harm to me while having sex to me, and make me believe it's because you love me so much that you are beyond yourself. You're out of control. You are so out of control that it's the only way that you can feel in control over somebody else. Do you hear me? That you want to convince me that that is okay, that that is godly, that the Holy Spirit and Yeshua approves of that. That when the God the Father created the Homo sapien and separated Eve from Adam to be his helpmate, that when they come together to make love, to be in communion, in soul union with each other and with God, you want to tell me and convince me that that is okay to engage in harmful, painful sex, which is something that everybody knows is the thing in Satanism, besides human sacrificing. It's just, can you see how close these things are to each other? To want to make people accustomed that it's normal to cause other things pain, to do what? What is the end result? For you to draw maximum power and energy from that individual's energy. Sorry to break it to you, but this is a form of parasitism, vampirism, succubites. So it has absolutely nothing to do with you having any true intention of expressing feelings of love towards that person that's going to build that person up, that's going to lift that person up, that's going to make that person feel very good about themselves, that's going to energize that person to be able to walk out of the bedroom feeling fantastic. Because let's be very, very honest now. Even if you have a psychologist brought in, how is it possible that you could make somebody else feel very good about themselves? How are you going to add to their self-esteem if you tie them down, you completely overpower them with your aggressive behavior, you completely fuck over their personal boundaries and mindset to make them believe that it's okay to overlap the pain and pleasure experiences. So now you untie that person after you ejaculated into that person, or if it's a woman, you made that person orgasm and cause it hurt. You tied it down, you overpower it. How is that person now supposed to feel good about themselves? Unless you have, in a very satanic way, overrid that person's healthy ability to reason, to make them feel a fake It's a fake belief that you are so mad about them, that you make them feel so fantastic that it's okay to believe the lie that for you to love them and make them feel loved, you have to allow them to completely overpower you, drain your life force, and make you believe that you now have the reason to feel good about yourself because you made him feel so good or her feel so good about themselves. Can you see how sick this is? Can you? Can you see how satanic this is? Can you see how disgustingly clever Lucifer and Azazel was to deceive even the children of God? That this kind of behavior can be okay. That this kind of behavior can be okay for godly men and women. Because I'm sorry, the individual that carries a certain frequency that I have come to know since the age of 12 to 16 years old up to now in my life, I can tell you right now, does not resonate on the frequency of that arsehole that I had a interview with, who wanted to make that movie, sadistic movie, with women and horses and dogs. I asked him, what kind of people wants to watch movies like that? So he said to me, oh, you'll be surprised about the large amount of people who will enjoy movies like that. He said, because these are the same people that created Natural Born Killers. And look how successful was Natural Born Killers. Now, unfortunately, he's right. Look at fucking Saw. I didn't even want to see Saw first because who wants to watch movies where people are tortured? I'm sorry. In my understanding of healthy boundaries, that goes way beyond unhealthy boundaries. Way beyond unhealthy boundaries. I took out a video once called The Brave because it was about a Native American. I was so fucking upset about that movie that I couldn't come to grips with reality for days on end. That there can be people out there that are so severely mentally fucked that they are so that they can consider it a form of help to make an individual agree to be severely tortured to death so that his family can have money. Who even came up with such a movie? Who even came up with such a severely fucked up sick concept? It can only be Satan himself. So now I just want to say to you, I understand why this lunatic that had this interview with me could believe that it's okay to make movies like that. And that it's going to be easy to find women that's going to agree to wanting to make movies like that. That there is such a large amount of people out there that want to watch it. And this is the problem. And this is how it came to be that we developed a time on planet Earth where sex trafficking and sexual perversion and abuse have reached an absolute high, where authorities, like in the USA, have to come in with military and space force people to bring an end to this severe forms of cruelty that has become normal and acceptable on our planet. You know what? If I was the leader of a country like Trump, I would really see, even with all the chaos on the planet, to try and get as many of the leaders of countries together in an emergency meeting to look at the dreadful, disgusting consequences of allowing pornography, allowing Satanism, allowing the Illuminati to continue to exist with all their abuse towards God's creation, abuse towards animals, abuse to children, abuse to women and young men and boys. I mean, what kind of future are we heading at if we are not now going to support Donald Trump in what he's trying to do to bring an end to the tolerance of evil and the root of evil, which is the love of money. And if you are so desperate for money that you are willing to go against everything inside of you that you know is right and wrong, and that is to sell yourself for wicked pornography, or to engage in satanic rituals, to sell your soul to the devil or sell your children's souls to the devil so you can have money. So can you see why God said the root of all evil is the love for money, the desire for more money? And this is why the leaders of the planet need to come together and say, people, we can no longer allow this current economic system to continue the way it does, because look at the vast amount of people that's engaged in criminal activity, engaged in the trafficking of children, engaged in severe forms of sexual perversion. We have to bring an end to this. We have to be the generation that's going to bring an end to this and use our God-given ability to reason intelligently and say, listen, this has gone way too far, that it can be okay for a mother and father that created the child and sit there watching other people sexually harming their child so they can have money, or doing some form of ritual abuse so they can have more money. People, can you not see how sick this is? And then we'll go one step further and decide, well, okay, I'm going to allow them to override my conscience, which is my ability to reason and discern between what is good and evil, and therefore make an informed choice in which one I do not further want to engage. Now, look how they manipulated you. Look how far they've gone. They have now gone so far to reason that if you teach your child, as a child already, that to accept the overlapping of pain and pleasure, that it's okay, and that they can gain from it by becoming less stressed and mentally less stressed, that you have now justified this behavior because it is beneficial to them in the end. It's beneficial to them feeling less stressed and less anxious and mentally more clear. Doesn't matter how much people and animals they've hurt in the process. And they think it's not going to have karma, and karma's not going to have a backlash. And karma's not in the end going to destroy them. Do you know how terrible this is for me to live in a community where a wealthy bastard that lives on the other side of the river has the right to torture chickens and dogs where you can hear the creatures screaming? If it's not him, it's the clients that visit the hotel that's allowed to do that. And it's always at night. And it's always at the most impossible hours, like 2:30 in the morning, or just after 12. And he went about so clever to forbid you putting your foot on his property for absolutely no reason. And the actual truth is, the very day you went to watch and see why are the chickens screaming, confronting the colored people where the fire is made where the chicken was screaming, that was exactly from that day on that I was forbidden to put my foot there anymore. If it's not dogs howling and barking at night being tied somewhere in the bushes, it's people being allowed to hunt animals at night. In a neighborhood where it is against the law to hunt in a neighborhood because bullets can hit. Arrows fly by night. Where does that saying come from? These arrows that's on hunting bows are extremely dangerous. How can this be legal? But you see, if you're a Freemason and you belong to the Illuminati and you're in the bed with certain government people that's also friends with the policeman, that covers up the whole shit show, then you can get away with this kind of evil. And this is why I'm talking about this, because this shit is happening around me. It's happening in my street. And it's always the same vehicles and same motorbikes. That's every time you hear animals screaming somewhere, it's the same noisy vehicles, it's the same noisy bikes, and they are allowed to make a huge fucking noise and racket at night after 12, but the rest of us, the rest of us dare not go out there and hit a gong or blow on a trumpet or rattle something or scream at somebody because we are the lunatics. We who want to stand up for justice, who want to make our voices stick and say, hey, what right do you have to continue with your chaos bullshit in a neighborhood where our countries have laws for the protection of our sanity at night, to have quiet and peace to rest? No, but you know what's behind all of this, because you need to go and see what color is the people that's in the cars being allowed by certain police people and Freemasons that's in the police and in these business people that own all these big businesses to continue with this bullshit, protecting them. Government people. It's fucking government people. And this morning, I had absolutely enough. They are watching my bedroom sliding door. The moment I open this fucking sliding door, the dogs start howling and barking and the chickens start screaming. Is this not a form of domestic terrorism? Can you see how far leadership have gone to allow despicable evil people to continue with the evil practices within neighborhoods, giving them the green light that they can put up illegal surveillance to communicate with each other when I go out of my doors, where, so that they can continue with their evil, knowing that I cannot stop them. But I'll tell you one thing, I know God's going to stop them, and God is in the process of exposing them in a way that they didn't know is happening. And this is why I'm making this video today. Because today, Mr. across the river who think the fucking sun shines out of your ass, what's deeply fucking disturbing to me is that you, who ooze satanic energy, that thing that was inside of your eyes the day you screamed at me on your porch at reception, that I'm not allowed to put my foot on your property again, was not a human. But you are allowed to be on the council of the people that's mentally retarded. I find that deeply shocking. Deeply fucking shocking. Now they have gates on the property that forbid you to visit those people. You can only visit those mentally handicapped people at very specific hours. So that means nobody can access that property or building or bedrooms of those people at night unless it is specific visiting hours. And you have a psychopathic, sadistic lunatic who has people visiting the hotel and colored people working on the property and government people and police people coming there, all participating in this. He's at the head of the council of these mentally handicapped people. Do you not find this very fucking disturbing? Because I do. And nobody does anything about this. Nobody says anything about this. You see, because if you have certain neighbors that's around here who's connected to mafia, because I didn't even know, I just happened to come across a video that tells just how many little mafia gangs are in South Africa. And today's the day that this fucking bullshit needs to be addressed. I do not have to live in a country where this kind of satanic practices is legal, because we have laws in our country. This used to be a country where God was honored, and there's a lot of God-fearing people in this country amongst all the races. This is not a racial thing. All the races is involved in this bullshit. And this has gone much further than just an hotel or hotels that's all across each other, where all these extremely wealthy people can come, that's willing to pay a little extra for a little fetish, that can happen as well. This is now happening on farms. And I can, if I want to, give you the names of where these farms are. Guest farms. Or special bathrooms need to be built at the back of these bathrooms. And all the carpet suddenly needs to be removed for all the little families that come to visit with their dogs. We don't say what the little families are doing to the dogs in this little guest houses that suddenly need new back door bathrooms with pipelines going to the river. People, this country has become beyond sick, fucking sick. And this is why I'm having this conversation this morning. And I hope that the entire world hears this message today.